Hi students, welcome back again to our Ask IITians. Hope you are well in your life and excited about the new topic that we are going to discuss in today's class. So in today's class, I'll be telling you something about what do we mean by leveling solvents. Also, I'll be telling you something about what are the different properties of water. I won't be discussing about the general properties of water, but yes, I'll be discussing all about the properties which are actually important in the terms of the chapter Ionic Equilibrium. Not only this, I'll tell you something about the common ion effect also. Like for example, when you have a solution and you add another solution which is having a common ion. So these things might be appearing little difficult to you at this point of time. But I'm sure once we do this topic in the class, things will become more easy for you. So be ready to make the things easier for you. Let's continue with the topic. Okay students, so now let's start discussing something more about leveling solvents. In the previous slides, we have already discussed about the different types of solvents which we do encounter in the case of ionic equilibrium. So now let's start up doing what do we mean by leveling solvents. So what is said in this theory of leveling solvents is the Bronsted-Lowry theory. It can be extended to the acid-base reactions in non-aqueous solvents. So what all we had studied was all about taking water as a solvent, which we thus termed as aqueous solution. Now we say that the Bronsted-Lowry theory which we had discussed in the previous slides, that can also be extended to those acid-base reaction systems which are taking place in the non-aqueous solvents. So this can also be used in differentiating the acidic strength of a particular acid in the titration of weak bases. So for example, I can say that if for example I say I have two different acids, let me say you have HCl and H2SO4. So if I want a solvent, so that this solvent can actually differentiate between what is the actual strength of these two acids. So we are actually looking for a particular kind of solvent. So we will use this concept of leveling solvents to differentiate the acidic strength of any particular acid in the titration of different bases. So we say that in the water solvent, the mineral acids appear to be equally strong because of their complete ionization. So water is called as a leveling solvent because it levels all the acids to the same strength. What we have discussed in the previous slides was if you are taking such a solvent which has a very high dielectric constant. So that solvent, to its fully utilization, it always tries its level best to break up the particular acid or the base which is given to you into the corresponding ions. So if I am saying if I take water as a solvent, so this water as a solvent will equally ionize this HCl also, and it will equally ionize this H2SO4 also. So if you dissolve HCl in water as a solvent, or if you dissolve H2SO4 in water as a solvent, you will be getting H positive and Cl minus, and here you will be getting 2H positive and SO4 2 minus. So what I can say is that water will be called as a leveling solvent because if you are dissolving the two acids in water, they all come over to the same level because this will also behave as a strong acid and this will also behave as a strong acid. So this is what is the concept of leveling solvents. Now we say that if instead of taking water as a solvent, if we take the mineral acids in pure acetic acid solvent. So now instead of taking water as a solvent, if I am taking acetic acid as a solvent. So if I am taking this thing as a solvent and if I am dissolving HCl in this and then I am dissolving H2SO4 in this, and let me say I am dissolving some other organic acid, for example C2H5COOH as a solvent, or if I dissolve any oxalic acid as a solvent in such a solvent, then the strength of this HCl, the strength of H2SO4, the strength of this propanoic acid, oxalic acid, all the acids will be found to have a different strength. So we say that when pure acetic acid is taken as a solvent, so I should not consider this aqueous acetic acid, rather I should consider the pure acetic acid as a solvent. Now if I am considering the pure acetic acid as a solvent, now this acetic acid is a proton, it's a poor proton acceptor as compared to the water, and it does not have a very high dielectric constant also. So if it doesn't have any high dielectric constant, it will not to its 100% efficiency will be able to dissociate the given acids. Like HCl will be dissociated to some different extent, and ethanoic acid or oxalic acid will be dissociated to some different extent. It can be said that it becomes weak, and hence all these acids can be differentiated on the basis of the strength. So this is how the concept of leveling solvent is used to differentiate between the strength of different acids and basic solutions. Now let us write a very good example which says that, for example, if I am taking HCl and I say you are taking acetic acid as a solvent. So if I simply would have written HCl, I could have written it as Cl minus, and this acetic acid is also a proton acceptor, so I will write CH3COOH2 positive. Now if I am saying this is an acid, so it will start acting as a base. Now if it start acting as a base, we also know that the conjugate base of this HCl solution will be this. So I can say that for any acidic solution of HCl, when HCl wants to release one of its proton, either the proton will be accepted by the acetic acid or the proton will be accepted by the Cl minus. So there is always a competition between the acetic acid and the Cl minus, which helps in differentiating what is the strength of the acid which is given to us. This was the concept behind how the leveling solvent will be very much useful to us in solving the questions about the strength of acids and bases in the different solvents. Now let's move over to another topic where we have to discuss about the common ion effect. Now what do we mean by common ion effect? It says that the degree of dissociation of a weak electrolyte is suppressed by the addition of another electrolyte, which is a strong electrolyte containing a common ion. So this effect is referred to as the common ion effect. I can say that if I, for example, write a reaction, and the reaction I am writing is of weak electrolyte, let us say that HX is a weak electrolyte which I am considering as an example. So if it's a weak electrolyte, I can say that it gets dissociated to form H positive and X minus. So there will always be an equilibrium which will be established, and I can write K equilibrium as concentration of H positive at equilibrium, concentration of X minus at equilibrium by concentration of HX at equilibrium. Now what do I say that if I am adding another electrolyte which is a strong electrolyte, for example, to this solution of HX which we are having, now if I am adding any NaX solution. Now this NaX solution is a solution of strong electrolyte. If it's a solution of strong electrolyte, that means I will have both Na positive and X minus in the solution. So I'll say that this X minus is being added to the equilibrium reaction which is taking place. Now according to the Le Chatelier's principle, it is very much clear that if you are increasing the concentration of X minus on the product side, that means the reaction will go to that direction in which the equilibrium will be using the X minus. So the reaction here in this case proceeds to the backward direction. That means the dissociation of HX will be affected. So this is what is meant by the common ion effect, that the degree of dissociation of a weak electrolyte is suppressed by the addition of another electrolyte which is a strong electrolyte which contains a common ion. Now let's consider this thing with the help of an example which says that acetic acid is a weak acid and it's a weak electrolyte. So we can always write CH3COOH is going to form CH3COO minus plus H positive. And we say that its ionization will be suppressed in the presence of a strong acid which is having H positive as the common ion. So if I add any strong acid from outside which will contribute to the addition of H positive to this equilibrium. Now if the concentration of H positive in this equilibrium increases in the right hand side, the reaction is going to move in the left direction. If it moves in the left direction, that means the dissociation of acetic acid will be reduced. And this is what is meant by the common ion effect. Let's now discuss the complete theory of common ion effect in details. It says that, for example, you consider any particular electrolyte AB, which is going to form A positive and B minus. So here I can write that if you take any weak electrolyte, let us say the weak electrolyte is AB, it is going to form, it will be taking part in an equilibrium where you will have A positive aqueous and you will have B minus aqueous. So if we are asked to write the equilibrium constant for this reaction, I can say K equilibrium will be the concentration of A minus aqueous at equilibrium multiplied by the concentration of, so it's A positive aqueous at equilibrium multiplied by the concentration of B minus aqueous at equilibrium divided by the concentration of AB. So now we say that this equilibrium constant K has a definite value at a given temperature. We already have done that. The K equilibrium depends upon the nature of reactant, nature of product and the temperature. So this K equilibrium will be a function of temperature. Now what I say that if any another electrolyte which contains A positive or B minus is added to the above solution, so that means there will be an increase in the concentration of A positive and B minus, but we told that the temperature is kept constant and K equilibrium is another constant. So the value of all the species A positive, B minus and AB have to change in such a way so that the entire K value remains a constant. So the concentration of AB must increase and hence only the equilibrium will be shifted to the left hand side. For more explanation, I can say that, let me now add a strong electrolyte NaB. So if it's a strong electrolyte, that means if I dissolve it in water, I'll get Na positive and B minus. Now B minus is a strong electrolyte, I am adding in a solution. That means the concentration of B minus here will get increased. But it doesn't matter whether the concentration of B minus is increased, because anyhow or the other we have to keep the value of K equilibrium as constant, since it is only the function of temperature. So if the concentration of B minus is increasing, that means you have to increase the concentration of AB also, so that the K equilibrium will be kept as a constant. Now if I say that there has to be an increase in the concentration of AB, that means the dissociation of AB will decrease, because then only the concentration of AB will be more. So we can say that this is all about the common ion effect, where we consider the effect of degree of dissociation of a weak electrolyte by the addition of any other electrolyte which is having one ion in common to the weak electrolyte. Having discussed about the common ion effect, it's now the time where we should start discussing about the properties of water. We know a lot about water, so let's also discuss about what do we mean by the properties of water. I say that water is neutral. So if water is neutral, or it can be said that the water has amphoteric nature. So amphoteric nature of water means that it can act both as well as acid as well as a base. So if you dissolve anything, let me say HX, if it is dissolved in water, if this will be a stronger acid as compared to water, so HX will start acting as an acid and the water will start acting as a base. So here in this case, if acid will be HX, so it will donate a proton which will say X minus, and since water is acting as a base, so it will accept the protons and hence it will form H3O positive. Moreover, if we say that there is any other molecule, say AB, which is a stronger base as compared to water, if this is a stronger base as compared to water, so water will start acting as an acid and it will start losing its own proton. So upon times water can act as an acid, and upon times it can also act as a base, depending upon the another thing which you are considering with water. And hence this property of water is known as the amphoteric nature of water. Let's come over to the second property of water, which says that the molar concentration or the molarity of water. So it means that even if I am taking pure water, So if I am taking pure water, I say that this pure water is found to have certain concentration. Now how do we define the concentration? Let us define the concentration in the terms of molarity. So if concentration is defined in the terms of molarity, I will say the number of moles of water by volume of solution in liters. So if I am considering just 1 liter of water, that means I am considering 1000 ml of water. Now considering 1000 ml of water means that let me take the density of water as 1 gram per ml at 25 degrees Celsius. So I will say that this means 1000 grams of water. So if I put this in the equation, I will say how to find the number of moles of water. That means the given mass, which is 1000 grams, by the molar mass of water, which is 18 gram per mole, by volume of solution in liter, I am taking to be 1 liter. So if I solve this thing, I will get a value of 55.55 moles per liter, which is nothing but 55.55 molar. Now this is known as the molar concentration of water or the molarity of water. What I say is, even if you have a beaker which contains a neutral water, like if it contains a normal water, then also that normal water is having some concentration and the value being a constant term as 55.55 molar. And this thing is a temperature dependent quantity because we are taking the density of water as 1 gram per ml, and we know that the density changes with the change in temperature. So at those temperature ranges where the density of water can be taken as 1 gram per ml, you can say that the water has a concentration of 55.55 molar. This was about one important property of water. Let's now move over to the second important property of water, which is the ionic product of water. What do we discuss in the ionic product of water? We say that according to the Arrhenius concept, the water is said to have followed a particular equilibrium where water gets dissociated to H positive and OH minus. So this is the equilibrium which is followed by water. Now I can say that the K equilibrium value can be written as the concentration of H positive, the concentration of OH minus divided by the concentration of water. We have just now studied that the concentration of water can be taken as 55.55 molar at nearly 25 degrees Celsius. So if I take this value, the left hand side, I can say K equilibrium into 55.55 will give us H positive into OH minus. This value is known as the ionic product of water, which is nothing but the Kw for water, and if you solve this thing, the value has been found to be 10 to the power minus 40. So we can say that the dissociation of water is endothermic. So on increasing the temperature, the K equilibrium will increase. So if you are increasing the room temperature, if you are giving more and more heat to water, it gets more and more dissociated, and hence the value of K equilibrium will increase. Now Kw also increases with the increase in temperature because Kw contains a factor of K equilibrium. So if I say K equilibrium is increasing with the increase in temperature, I can also say that the Kw value also increases with the increase in temperature. Okay students, so having discussed about the ionic product of water, now let's move ahead for the further discussion of the ionic product. We had simply said that how are we going to calculate the ionic product of water, and we ended up saying that the value of Kw, which is found to be 10 to the power minus 14, will be written as the concentration of H positive into the concentration of OH minus. So if we continue with the discussion, I will say let's find out what will be the pH of water and how the pH of water will be related to the ionic product of water. Since if I am taking the case of neutral water, so if I take the case of neutral water, I will say that whatever the concentration will be of H positive, the same will be the concentration of OH minus also. That means I can put, let us say the value of concentration of H positive and OH minus be same, and if I put it equal to X and if I substitute this value in the earlier equation, I can say that Kw will be concentration of H positive into concentration of OH minus will be 10 to the power minus 14. If I put this thing, we say x into x is 10 to the power minus 14, and this whatever we are doing now is all at 25 degrees Celsius. So we can say x square value is found to be 10 to the power minus 14. So the value of x will be found to be 10 to the power minus 7. Now if it's about the pH of water, we'll discuss it in the further slides. What do we mean by pH? But for that time, we can keep in mind that the concentration of H positive is found to be equal to the concentration of OH minus, and that is found to be 10 to the power minus 7 molar. Now we say that the ionic product of water is always a constant. Whatever has been dissolved in water, it's an equilibrium constant, so the value again will be dependent only and only on temperature. So as we have discussed in the earlier slide, we say that any equilibrium constant K equilibrium, it may be any type of equilibrium constant, the value irrespective of depending upon the value of reactants and products, the value is dependent only and only on temperature. And if I say that K equilibrium, or if I say Kw for water, so Kw of water is nothing but K equilibrium into 55.55 molar. And this is nothing but again an equilibrium constant. So since it's an equilibrium constant, the value will again be dependent on the temperature rather than the respective values of the concentration of H positive and OH minus. So we'll continue the discussion about the ionic product of water in the further slides when we'll encounter what do we mean by pH of any solution. By the time we should discuss what do we mean by degree of dissociation of water. We have already learnt about what do we mean by degree of dissociation. So we say that now since water can act as a weak acid, so it will follow this particular equation where I can write water will be dissociated to form H positive and OH minus. So if I write water to form H positive and OH minus, and we have also defined what do we mean by degree of dissociation is defined as the number of moles dissociated by the total number of initial moles taken. And if I am talking about 1 liter of water, I can say that if I am talking about 1 liter of water which contain a total of 55.55 moles of neutral water. And we said that the concentration of H positive and the concentration of OH minus in water is found to be 10 to the power minus 7 molar. That means 1 liter of water contains nearly 10 to the power minus 7 moles of H positive, and they contain nearly 10 to the power minus 7 moles of OH minus. Now to calculate the degree of dissociation of water, I'll say alpha is equal to the number of moles of water dissociated, which is nothing but equal to the number of moles of H positive which are present in the solution. So the value will be 10 to the power minus 7. So these are the number of moles divided by the total number of moles of water which were initially taken in 1 liter. So the value is 55.55 moles. Now alpha, it's a unitless quantity, so the value is coming out to be 1.8 into 10 to the power minus 7%. Now looking at such value of alpha, we can say that water is such a weak acid because it's having just 1.8 into 10 to the power minus 7% value of degree of dissociation. That means water is such a weak acid. So this is how the degree of dissociation of water is to be calculated and how it can be related to the strength of acidic property of water. This is already which we have discussed, and this is a new name which is given to the another topic, that is the absolute dissociation constant of water. What we have said that if water is acting as an acid, I can write water to form H positive plus OH minus. Now if water is forming H positive plus OH minus, I can write K equilibrium again as H positive into OH minus divided by water concentration. Now let me try to put up the value. If I am saying water is acting as an acid, so I can call this K equilibrium as Ka. And if I put down the values, I'll say the concentration of H positive is 10 to the power minus 7 molar. The concentration of OH minus is again 10 to the power minus 7 molar and the concentration of water is 55.55 molar. On solving this term, we get the Ka for the Ka for water to behave as an acid will be called as 1.8 into 10 to the power minus 60. So we all know that the pK is nothing but another term to define what is a Ka. It's minus log of Ka. So if I put this thing minus log of 1.8 into 10 to the power minus 16, the value comes out to be 15.74. So we say that the pKa for water to behave as an acid is coming out to be 15.74. The entire discussion about the pK and pH will be done in the further slides. Students, here at Ask IITians, we provide you a very good opportunity where you can ask your doubts also if you have any doubt regarding any topic. For that, you first of all have to go on to www.askiitians.com website. If you open the page, you will find a topic as Ask a Question. So you can click at that link, Ask a Question. At the right hand side, you will get something where you will have to first of all select a category. The different categories that will be available, like it will be, you can have physics, you can have a question from maths or chemistry. So suppose I select a question from chemistry, then here you can also attach the image of the question if you have in account. Else you can type your question here and finally click over to get an answer. As soon as you type something over to get an answer, you can ask the question from your respective teacher. So hope this also helps you out and your query will be solved. Students, so as per what I said in the beginning of the class, that in the class we will be discussing difficult topics. But now I think the topics will be easier for you because the details of the topics that we have done were good enough, I suppose. And I think you would have enjoyed the topic also. Now in the next class, I'll be telling you something about what do we mean by pH and how are we going to find out the pH of different solutions. So I'll meet you in the next lecture with this new topic, but before that, I want to promise from your side that you'll go back, read the chapter till this point and come very well prepared for the next topic. So by the time, take care and have a good day.